It seems that good ideas begin with thoughts that start as impractical and impossible. These ideas are easy to dismiss because no one has done things the way they are proposed. Besides, if it fails, it would be a huge waste of time and resources. But sometimes persistent voices prevail, and even reluctant men become part of the story. Timothy Palmer is an example. The year was 1800, and Palmer was a success story in his part of Massachusetts. His skills were of a traveling tale, and the name Timothy Palmer was being whispered in Philadelphia. Now, there were men who thought Palmer could help them achieve a dream of a more durable necessity. They had been waiting a very long time. Perhaps it seemed an impractical waste of time, something that would result in the individuals involved in its construction being reduced to New England laughingstock. While Palmer was less than enthusiastic about the project, he reluctantly agreed to construct a bridge on 30th Street in Philadelphia. But this was a bridge type that had never been constructed before, not even once. But it would change how people thought of New England. It would influence pop culture, would become destination stops for those who had never seen a covered bridge. Now, Palmer's success brought more requests to build more covered bridges, but this is more than the story of the first covered bridge. You see, Timothy Palmer did not come up with that idea. That honor would fall to other men who had the vision but lacked the know-how. And even then, the opinions were both mixed and subject to revision, with a liberal dose of tension. The idea for this Philadelphia bridge started at the beginning of 1769 in the mind of Robert Smith, a respected Pennsylvania architect. Now, Smith was looking to improve bridge design and had no initial vision for a covered structure. Smith's design was an improvement in structural support, but the covering? Well, that was also Smith's idea, although not something included in his earliest proposal. Perhaps he thought no one would take him seriously. Sadly, Robert Smith would pass more than 20 years before the bridge was actually constructed. Then, 13 years before the building of that bridge, Columbia Magazine published a plan for the first covered bridge, which must have seemed very strange to readers who'd never witnessed one. Now, it would take nearly 30 years before the city of Philadelphia took the idea of a covered bridge seriously. It was a man by the name of Charles Wilson Peale. He took the challenge of moving the idea forward as his personal quest, printed materials, and engaged in personal lobbying. And by 1798, the city was finally showing interest. But there would be another twist. Enter another man by the name of William Weston. He took an interest in the bridge and proposed an elegant stone structure that mirrored ones he knew from his home country, England. Now, this seemed to provide the class for which the city would be remembered, yet the cost was much greater than anyone felt was advisable. Weston would complete some of the early work on the support side of construction, and his work was detailed and extensive. It used up most available resources. Palmer was brought in because the city needed to reduce costs, and Palmer could deliver a wooden structure that would be in keeping with financial constraints. The bridge would be completed by Palmer, and there was no initial interest in covering the bridge due to cost, but Judge Richard Peters stepped in to support the idea of a covered bridge, noting the initial interest of Robert Smith, who provided the original designs for the bridge. Now, Peters wrote, "I bring before you the subject of covering the bridge and herewith present several drafts of covers adapted to the frame. From the time of the first idea of a wooden superstructure, I have never wavered in my opinion of the indispensable necessity of the cover. I was surprised, a long time after I had conceived it to have been a general sentiment, to find myself in minority on this subject, though I was not entirely alone. I have reason now to hope that the sentiment of the stockholders have materially changed." This is where the reluctant bridge builder, Timothy Palmer, appealed to the budget-conscious decision-makers. Palmer would write, "The bridge will not last more than 10 to 12 years, to be safe for heavy carriages to pass over, and it is sincerely my opinion that the bridge will last 30 and perhaps 40 years, if well covered. You will excuse me in saying that I think it would be sporting with property to suffer that this beautiful piece of architecture, as you are pleased sometimes to call it, which has been built at so great expense and danger, to fall into ruin in 10 to 12 years. So, in the end, the impractical became practical. The impossible became possible. And Philadelphia is remembered as a place where covered bridges were born. By 1806, the bridge was open to the public. Covered bridges last because their wooden surface is covered from the elements. They don't deteriorate as quickly. And even though bridge construction has advanced to steel and concrete, Some of these covered wood iconic structures exist and are still used and are still celebrated because one man had a vision, another had skills, a third brought persuasion, a fourth had a plan, and a fifth had persistence. Without even one man's influence in this group of Timothy Palmer, Robert Smith, Charles Wilson Peale, William Weston, and Judge Richard Peters, covered bridges may have never become part of the tapestry of American history, bridging where you are with a memorable past. For you see, every voice is important, and history always has a backstory.